Hi everyone, this is Adrian at 18 Echo SF. I decided to make this video. It's going to be kind of a medical public service announcement concerning something that happened to me that I think you should be aware of. God forbid it would ever happen to you, but just in case it did, you would at least not be caught unaware. I've mentioned it several times in some of the videos that I've made previously. That back in 2011 I was diagnosed with melanoma, which is not good because for those of you who don't know, there are no treatments for melanoma. In other words, there's no chemotherapy, no radiation treatment, no nothing. If you get diagnosed with melanoma, all they can do is cut it out, and hopefully it hadn't spread to your lymph nodes, which would then go to all your other organs, your liver, your lungs, whatever. It's not a pleasant thing for sure. I kind of lucked out, which I'll explain during this video. And the reason that I decided to take the time to make this video is because of the next video I'm going to do in changing out another part on one of my other guns, on my Colt. And I'm going to do that video either later today or tomorrow. But back to my story. In 2011, I was diagnosed with melanoma in the bed of my nail of my right thumb. And let me back up a little bit. About 10, 12 years ago, I had noticed on my thumb a brown striated line that ran from the base of my nail at the cuticle all the way to the very tip of my thumb. So when I had gone for my yearly physical, I showed it to my primary care physician, who's been my doctor for 20 years now, and I showed him this line, and he was a little concerned, and he said, you know, let's keep an eye on it, and if it would ever change dramatically in either size or color, to let him know, because it could be something that's not so good. He didn't explain what he meant at that point because there wasn't quite a need for it. So anyway, then fast forward back up to 2011, and that brown line developed a black lesion right at the very base of the nail, right in the cuticle. It was about the size of the tip of a pencil, maybe slightly bigger, and it was black, not brown. So I let it go for about a month, and over those next few weeks, the color in the striated line in the nail began to change a bit as well. So I went to my dermatologist, and they decided to do a biopsy. That biopsy was done in the dermatologist's office, and it hurt like hell. I'll be very honest. They gave me about 6 shots of lidocaine or novocaine, whatever they used to numb the thumb up. But because they had to go straight down to try to get a sample of the lesion, it didn't really dull the pain at all. So the results came back about a week later, and it was inconclusive for anything bad. So they wanted to do another biopsy, which I decided to do. So I had the second biopsy done again in the office, and this one hurt even worse than the first one. It was getting considerably worse because they had to go much further down into the inside the thumb to get a good sample so that it wouldn't come back inconclusive again, which I think was smart. So that sample was tested and came back as negative for melanoma. So I was a pretty happy camper at that point. But about a month later, I noticed that black mark that they had taken out for the testing had come back. And it came back even bigger and uglier than it was the first time. So I contacted the dermatologist. They referred me to a plastic surgeon to do a more extensive biopsy. And when I went to be examined by him, he immediately wanted to do this biopsy, like within the next few days. Well, I was a little turned off by the rush factor. I didn't want to rush into anything, considering the fact that the first one was inconclusive and the second one was negative. So I was pretty unsure about whether I should even have that third biopsy. So I asked for a second opinion, and I was examined by the head of the department, and she said, well, it looks pretty bad, but she said, and you may be at risk for melanoma. So I told her that I've done some fairly risky things in my life, and I'm not adverse to taking risk as long as I know what the kind of the percentage is. And so I said, what kind of a percentage do you think there might be of me having melanoma? And she looked at me and said, well, based on the history and what I see right now, I don't think there's more than about a 5% chance of you having melanoma. Well, as it turns out, she was absolutely wrong, because she suggested I continue taking digital photographs of my thumb, and if it changed and got bigger and worse, to definitely come back, which I did. I went back to the same plastic surgeon who I did not like at all the first time I met him, and as it turns out, I wound up really liking him, and he's really the person who saved my life. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but as I explained, there are no treatments at all for melanoma. Once you get melanoma, hopefully it hasn't spread, because if it has, all they're going to do is start taking pieces out. And eventually those pieces will become larger and more internal, and you'll just die from it. So anyway, he did the third biopsy. And, when you look in a doctor's eyes, you can usually tell what they're thinking. And he said to me, I'll have the biopsy back in about 3 days, and I'll call you and let you know what the results are. Well, at that point, he and I both knew, without even doing the testing, what the result was going to be. And sure enough, he called me 3 days later and said, I have bad news for you. The biopsy was positive for melanoma, and we need to get that thumb taken off as quickly as we can. So they put me in touch with an oncologist. They put me in touch with a orthopedic surgeon to take my thumb off, which they did. Now, I'll be honest, they did it like a week later, a week and a half later. Having the thumb removed was really no big deal, believe it or not. The biopsies hurt a lot more than the surgery to have the thumb taken off. Because, they cut the thumb off. He tried to save as much of it as he possibly could. You'll notice if I bend my thumb, maybe you can see I can just bend the knuckle. So it was cut off just above the knuckle, and then the skin, of course, was wrapped up over the top and then sutured. The only problem with the thumb, of course, is that even 3 years since it's been taken off, it is still very, very sensitive, and it causes me some problems sometimes, particularly drawing my weapon out of a holster. If I try to do it fast, I catch my, my thumb on the side of the gun or whatever, and stars appear in my vision. Anyway, and it's the reason, as you know, that I brought this up in a previous video, that I changed out the manual safety on my Kimber, because the safety, the stock one is an extended safety and ran out to about here, and whenever I would lift it up, of course my thumb was resting right against it, and it was an awful lot of discomfort. So the new one that I put in stops right here, so I can catch it and bring it up, and it works perfect. So I'm going to change another piece out on my Colt, which I'll explain in the next video that I'm going to do. I'll show you what it is then. But I wanted to just kind of do this video to explain to you that what happened to me with my thumb was very, very unusual. I am in a less than 1% of the population that gets what I had. The reason being that I am Caucasian, as you can see, and this mostly happens to African American and Latino populations, of which I am neither. I am a European white guy, so it was very, very unusual that this happened to me. I was lucky, I guess. So anyway, and to show you the reason I decided to make the video, it's been about a year and a half now, but my neighbor across the street from me recently left the Marine Corps. He happens to be a black guy, African American, and one day he said to me, how did you know that you had what you had? And I was explaining to him about the striated line on my thumb and the color of it and what it looked like. And he said to me, does it look like this? And he put his thumb up and he had that line. I immediately told him he needed to go see a dermatologist and have it examined because it looked exactly like mine did at the very beginning. He and his wife divorced, so I haven't seen him in about a year. I don't know whether he ever went and got it taken care of, but I sure hope to God that he did, because this was nothing to mess around with, you know. I was pretty cavalier about it in the beginning, holding off on, you know, particularly doing that third biopsy. But even if I had done it sooner, it wouldn't have mattered. I was very, very lucky in that the cancer that was in the bed of the nail had not spread to the lymph nodes in my arm and then to my underarm, because then, you know, it could have been big trouble, as they say, you know. So I just wanted to kind of let you know to, you know, check your body periodically. Even for the people who are Caucasian, I mean, it happened to me. It could happen to anybody. Check your nails, both hands and feet, because it can happen on your feet as well. And whenever I go for a dermatology appointment now, which is every 6 months, they do a complete body scan of me now that I've had melanoma. They check in between my toes, a crack on my rear end. They check everywhere to make sure that it hasn't, you know, appeared elsewhere. So, you know, I know this may be kind of a boring video for a person that normally does gun videos, but you know, I'm a humanistic kind of guy, and I like to just put out good information if I can. And God forbid something like this would ever happen to you. I hope it never does, but at least you can now be aware of kind of what to look for. So stay safe and well out there, folks, and I'll probably see you tomorrow when I do the gun video with my Colt and my Kimber. Anyway, have a good day.